GMC and Chevrolet have always shared a complicated relationship. Same parent company, same factories, and the same basic vehicles rolling off the assembly line, but they had two very different customer bases. Chevy buyers and GMC buyers really weren't the same type of people, and the folks loyal to each brand tended to take that loyalty seriously. So when Chevrolet launched the El Camino in 1959, it created a problem. Here was this low muscle car with a pickup truck bed out back. Something genuinely unlike anything else on the road. And it was a Chevy. GMC customers who wanted one had exactly one option: swallow their pride and walk into a Chevy dealership. Now, Chevy discontinued the El Camino after 1960 and revived it in 1964, riding on the new Chevrolet platform. And that was when it started selling in serious numbers. All through the mid to late 60s, while the muscle car era was in full swing, the El Camino kept on getting faster, more stylish, and more popular, all at the same time. While GMC had nothing to offer buyers, sitting on its side of the fence, it took 7 long years. But in 1971, GMC finally responded with the Sprint, their own take on the muscle utility coupe. Now, whether it was worth the wait or not is another question entirely. And the answer might surprise you, because these GMC-badged El Caminos just so happened to be some of the bay and the rarest American iron of the period. As everybody probably knows, the El Camino was already a bit of an acquired taste. It was a little odd-looking, yet it was as comfortable on the work site as the drag strip. It was a specific type of person that wanted an El Camino. But by 1971, it was well established and popular, selling tens of thousands of cars every year. That was the year that GMC finally jumped into the market with the rebadged version of the El Camino that they called the Sprint. Now, the Sprint was not a revolutionary car by any means. It was probably one of the most shameless rebadges in automotive history. Basically, all GMC did to turn the El Camino into the Sprint was change the badging on the car. Underneath, the same Chevrolet chassis remained. The Sprint was offered with many of the same engine options as the El Camino, with motors from the 250 inline 6 all the way up to the 454 LS5 big block, which was a venerable bruiser with a 4.25-inch bore and 4-inch stroke. GMC decided to take away the turbojet nameplate that was associated with some of these bigger, more powerful Chevy motors and call them the Invaders. They were the same engines as in the Chevys though. The two main trim levels available for the Sprint were the Standard and the Custom, with an additional SP package available only on the Customs. The SP package was almost the same thing as the SS package on the Chevrolet and/or El Camino. Unfortunately though, that big block, 454, was starting to have to deal with the emissions regulations of the early 70s. So while in 1,970 that engine was good for 390 horsepower, by the time it got to the Sprint a year later, GMC was forced to reduce its compression from 10.25 to 1 down to 8.5 to 1, which dropped power to ATW 285 horsepower net. Still, the car wasn't slow per se. It had a 0 to 60 time of 6.5 seconds, and it could run the quarter in 14.7 at 97 miles per hour. But the performance reduction compared to the earlier 454S was noticeable. Another good engine option for the Sprint was the 402. Now, the 402 was only rated at 300 gross horsepower in 1971, but it was available with the Muncie 4-speed manual. Because for some odd reason, GMC decided to only offer the 454 inches the Sprint with an automatic. By 1972, for the Sprint, emissions choked power out more. The 454 was now only making 270 net horsepower, and the 402 was at 240, even equipped with big 4-barrel Holley carbs. On the right side though, while the 454 was losing a lot of power on paper, it still had 390 foot-pounds of torque. Those SP package cars, like I mentioned, were very similar to the SS package cars. In addition to the big block engines that they were fitted with, they generally got stiffer springs and shocks, but they did not get the rear anti-roll bar that the Chevelle SS got, which made the Sprints a little bit less stable, especially in slippery conditions, considering there was no weight in the back. The first-gen Sprints that came out in '71 shared that exact same front fascia as the Chevelle with the bulgy hood and the big two headlights. And you would get a blacked-out grille and potential stripe package if you opted for a Sprint SP. Again, this was pretty much just an El Camino, but the SP still did look good. The interior was dominated by a comfortable bench seat, in either leather or cloth vinyl, and an optional center console. The instrument cluster was dense and utilitarian with a variety of round gauges, but on the Sprint, it was nothing to write home about. Standard options like air conditioning, cruise control, power windows, and power locks were also available if you wanted them. Now, the Sprint followed the Chevelle and the El Camino into a new generation in 1973. The Standard, Custom, and Custom SP packages continued with the same distinctions as the first gen. The 454 was available in the Sprint until 1975, but after that, the largest available engine was the 400. The second generation's exterior styling on the Sprint changed drastically, with the front end getting a 5-mile-per-hour bumper redesign. The individual headlights were replaced with double-stacked ones, and the sides of the cars also got some extra ridges, which was a direct contrast to the smooth sides of the first-gen GMC Sprints. The interior of the Sprint as it progressed remained similar except for the instrument cluster, which changed from round gauges to wide rectangular gauges that were common in the 70s as the world moved towards a more plush luxury vibe rather than performance. The Sprint would continue to be made through 1,977, with only 3,000 to 7,000 cars being made each year. This was a far cry from El Camino sales, and most of these Sprints would end up being relatively tame standard models. There were basically only a few hundred customs and custom SPs made every year, and often under 100 each year, with the largest engine, Option. In 1978, the Sprint was renamed the Caballero, and it was then based on the newly redesigned Chevelle, Malibu, and soon-to-be El Camino. Now, the Caballero would continue with similarly low sales figures through 1,987. When the Caballero was released though, any of that big block, muscle car heritage that the Sprint had initially shared with the El Camino SS's was pretty much dead. By this time, the El Camino was slow and the Caballero was definitely slow as well. In general, the GMC Sprint and Caballero was just such a strange car. I think the main problem that the Sprint faced was that GMC was just too late to the game. If they had introduced Sprint in 1964 when Chevy revived the El Camino, they might have sold a lot more. Then if they had made some more serious visual changes, because let's be honest, it was exactly the same car. There were probably some GMC brand loyal buyers who would have sought to buy this early on if it had been available. But after 7 years with the only Chevy option, I think most people had either given up on buying a car of that type or just decided to go buy an El Camino, and then if they liked it, they would go buy another El Camino. And so unfortunately for GMC, the Sprint always remained a relatively low-selling vehicle, selling at best a little over 1/10 the numbers of the El Camino. As I mentioned before, annual sales of the Sprint never reached higher than 7,000 cars, and there were just 3,501 of them sold in 1975, which was the Sprint's leanest year. To show you just how small that figure was, Chevy sold 38,000 Corvettes in 1975 compared to the 3,000 GMC Sprints, which means they are very rare, much more so than El Caminos. But sadly, just as shameless rebadges, with a lot of them being relatively low-performance trim levels, they're just not much more valuable than El Caminos, and there's just really not many of them out there. If most of them were more base model, pedestrian-optioned ones, they likely were thrown away and used hard over their lifetime. The real buyer case for a GMC Sprint is somebody who can find one of the few high-performance ones that are still left, or if somebody happens to be a GMC truck fanatic and they want to go find themselves a GMC version of the El Camino to go ahead and complete their collection. And that wraps up the story of the GMC Sprint. Do you like it more than the El Camino just because it's a little bit different and more rare? Or would you have rather just gone with an El Camino in the period? And thank you all for watching the video yet again. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. But otherwise, I will see you all in the next one. Enthusiasts.